So I've had a couple of requests to go around the room and do introductions again for people who might be new or might not remember everyone's name. I'm Gloria McPherson, Town Planner. That's David Gardner, Acting Town Manager.
Michelle Jarosevich, Acting Assistant Town Manager, Housing Specialist, and Grant Administrator.
Steve Katsarenas, Board of Health and Innkeeper.
I'm Jim Woods.
Brian Armstrong, ZBA.
I'm Brandon Quesnell. I'm on Planning Board and also an innkeeper.
My name is Rob Anderson. I own the canteen with my partner, and I'm on the zoning board.
Louise Benden, I'm on Finance Committee. And Gina Lipcott.
Marty Ristine, Historic District.
Marty what?
Marty Ristine, Historic
Are you in
District Commission.
You want me to say it? I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought he finished. Nice.
I'll sign it now.
Okay.
Thank you.
We didn't say anything because you never left this room. We had our HBC meeting at 3 and then, yeah.
Oh, right. You never left the room.
No, 3:30, sorry.
I'm Jennifer DeBrawl, the attendance taker.
Frank Pacello. Steve Conger.
Sorry.
I'm Louis Person.
Grace Turner O'Malley, Planning Board.
Meg Stewart. Maureen Wilson.
Ryan Campbell, Planning Board.
Anna Mead, Recycling Committee. And Phil Crone, Disability Commission.
Rachel White, I've been in the inner sanctum for a lot of years now. I'm just Jane Citizen. Jane with an interest.
And I'm Rick Alberg. I'm on the Bicycle Committee, and I'm volunteering for PTV to get this on tape.
So I think that we're probably not going to get through the whole agenda, but we should probably stick to it so that we can move things along. And the first thing is an update about forming a nonprofit. And Steve and Louise have been working on that, and even though Steve's written on the agenda, I think it's Louise who's going to update everyone.
Well, I think Steve
on
is
the
going
progress.
We both are.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going to do it together. We met and talked about the, the kind of the legal structure, and since Steve's an attorney, he of course took the lead on that and has done some further research on the format of what the board would look like. But we're also looking for volunteers to help us kind of work through and get good suggestions about how to reach out to community members and get them involved in the board of this organization, of this Provincetown 365 organization, as well as perhaps just serving on it, just getting more people interested in coming to these meetings and participating.
Our third committee member was Stephen Latassa-Nix, who's not able to be here tonight. And the legal structure actually is pretty simple, and the IRS has created this format. Most of you are familiar with 501c3. Well, this is a 509a1 that we would set up. And it's a nonprofit. It's denominated a community foundation. In looking at some of the issues that have arisen with other foundations, some things that we need to decide at the outset are, what is the geographic scope? And I think that's actually, I thought that was like a really simple question to answer, but then when I started to actually look at it and think about it, I think it's a lot more involved than that, because what you have to look at, I mean, in the metropolitan area, Kansas City is a really good example. It's in 2 states, and so here's this community that has to decide how they're going to do what they have to do, and they're doing it in 2 different states, and it's 4 counties, so they've decided how they're going to design themselves. We have to do that too, and it could be that it's just Town of Provincetown, but it could be that we actually look at this as a market and figure out, who's involved in this market and what the boundaries are. And then there's also issues around governance and how this, once you create a structure and a board, and let's say most of the money comes through bequests, because that's typically what happens. So in other words, it's not fundraisers on the town green that raises the money. It's somebody wealthy dies and they leave $1 million to Provincetown 365. So that doesn't happen next year, but it happens in 2020. So in 2020, we start getting $1, $2, $3 million. Now you've got some real money that's actually rivaling anything else going on in town.
You're thinking big.
I mean, that's the
Who
history.
about to die? We can work on that.
So Santa Fe, New Mexico has a $28 million foundation. And they have a lot more people than we do, but they're actually a lot poorer than we are. So, I mean, I don't think that that's crazy, but I do think that we have to decide up front, what's the relationship between that board and itself? In other words, how do they pick themselves or who selects the board members, and then what's their mission, and you decide that up front. And the board really can't change the mission. It really has to come back to some organization like us that would decide, your mission is to support DART, I'm just making this up, and you're supposed to do it in the following ways, and you go out and raise the money or manage the money, increase the money, and then you decide what to fund and how to fund it, and that's the board's job. So I think having a few more volunteers serve on this committee to help us divine some of these questions would be really important, because if we don't do it right at the outset, we're creating a potential problem for all of us in the future.
Do you want
Questions?
volunteers now? Or do you want
Yeah, or
volunteer?
you can volunteer now, or you can come see Louise and me,
Yeah.
or email us, or
Oh.
talk to Gloria.
Maybe we should, this is the other thing, do we have a phone list or an email list?
We have an email
or
list.
Please
something?
email us.
Okay, yeah. It's been so long, I've forgotten.
So let us know. And so we're not looking for lawyers. We're just looking for people who
Right.
maybe have some experience with nonprofits or nonprofit governance or community development. Any of that would be of interest.
Thank you.
Crickets.
Okay, next up, Rob is, I'm sure you all saw the website that he put together, which is really intuitive and beautiful, and I think will serve the group very well. And he's going to walk us through it and talk about the possibility of using Google Groups as another option for exchanging information, which is a little bit less public, but might be worthwhile for some of our half-baked ideas.
Yeah, I have a few other options too. So, well, first of all, I want to say I'm really excited to be here. No one said that yet, so I'm really excited. I'm excited that there's so many people here still. Like, I was worried that after meeting one, there's going to be a lot less people, but doesn't look like it's going to be that way. So I made a website. Thanks for everyone who gave me feedback, and most of the feedback was positive, so that's cool. I just wanted to give you all a general overview of what it is and how it works, just so you understand. And that so if you need to talk to somebody else about it, you can show them around the website. So the address is www.provincetown365.com, which is intuitive and obvious. There's a really big picture when you get there. I thought it was a cool picture, but I also picked it because there's this space here that once we have a mission or like a tagline or a sense of the words that go along with our group, we'll be able to put it in that space. So when the first thing you see will be this pretty picture and some words, whatever it is we decide to, however we want to describe ourselves. So the website as it is now, it's just basic, and I just put placeholders everywhere. But I'll give you a tour of what I've done. So there's the About Us section, and then so in the About Us section we'll explain our mission. I wrote up a little bit about our history. Obviously, we can change that as we go. We'll have whatever we decide is our guiding principles or vision, or if we don't, whatever we decide to describe ourselves and what goes along with who we are, I'll put it in the About Us section. In this section, meetings and upcoming and archives. So here you can see the upcoming. So this was the meeting that we were supposed to have last week. I didn't update it in between then, but you'll see. It has the day, the meeting time, the place, and then I put the agenda. I'm going to work on it so that the agenda is like a picture, and you just click it and the picture pops up. It's a little complicated in the program that I use. So right now you have to hit like each page, and it downloads on your computer, and you can read it from there. So it's not perfect, but it is what it is. And archives, I left the information from the past meetings up, and then published the videos so people can go through. They can scroll down and start at the beginning and watch all of our videos from day one if they want to get information about who we are and what we're doing. So I think it's kind of cool, and it's a pretty great way for people to stay in touch with us and stay involved even if they can't be here for certain meetings. And then documents. Right now in here I have the two reports. So the initial report they gave us in the presentation and the final DART report. And again, you click on those and it downloads a PDF to your computer. It's the same link that's on the town website. This is just more intuitive and sort of going to put it all in one spot. So the things that I'm going to add, that I know I want to add at this point, just to let you guys know, I'm going to make those agendas a little easier to find and see. we're going to add the About Us language once we have language that's about us. I thought adding another, so let's add more buttons as we decide what they are. I thought a button that describes our progress or successes or achievements would be important so that people can see, here's what we've done, here's the things that we're getting accomplished. That could also go along if we wanted to have a blog, something that was updated saying, here's what we're working on. So that would be before we had achievements, I guess, trying to describe what's going on. But, I don't know how effective that is. I don't know how many people want to read that kind of stuff. I'm not sure. It's a lot of, it may be helpful, it might not be helpful. I'm not sure. We can decide as we go along. And then I was thinking another button describing how people can get involved. So just you click it, it says who to email. I'm not sure who to email. If it's Gloria or one of us.
We set up, with Gloria and I set up a Gmail account.
Great,
so
good.
it's Provincetown 365.
I tried to do it today and saw that someone already did.
Oh, yes, yes, I got your text.
Okay, good. And I was like, did I do this? I couldn't remember the password.
So, and I put out on a bunch of them notices about the meeting tonight that if people couldn't be at the physical meeting, that if they wanted to send in their comments about specific topics we were going to talk about, that I would watch that.
Okay.
Probably not, not like as we're going through the meeting, but at the beginning of the meeting, it's sort of like letters to a board.
Yeah.
You would look it up so that if people couldn't be here. So that is hooked up right now. It's going to my email and Gloria's email.
Okay.
But we could also talk about if other people want
I'm more than welcome to let you take care
cool.
of it.
Yeah. So it's hooked up. It's
Okay, great. So I'll add a link to there. And then however we decide people should get involved. I don't know if we want to encourage people to come to one of the big meetings or join. We have to decide about our structure and everything, but that's another conversation.
Maybe this looks so great, and maybe there's a button that has the subcommittees that we're sort of in theory going to break up into,
Right.
and then there's a contact per, since those subcommittees are supposed to be about, what we're individually interested in.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so
It
they'll.
might
And there'll be contacts for that.
Yeah, and there'll be
Right.
contacts under that, so maybe that's
So
sort of
either,
another.
so either there'll be one button that describes all of them, or maybe
Yeah.
there'll be a button for every single one of them,
Yeah.
once there's enough information to populate that.
I love the way it looks right now, and I think that,
What have we done? What are we working on? What's in the future? And then you can do subcategories in those 3 buttons.
Yeah.
well, but the thing that I find about a lot of websites these days, including, of course, the town's website, is that you start putting so many buttons on it, and there's so much stuff on the first page, you just have a hard time finding your way to where you want to go, and then you can't find your way back. And it's really nice if you could have the About Us, have you click on About Us, and then you could have progress, and you know what I'm saying? If you had subcategories under that, rather than cluttering up the home page, because it ends up being off-putting, at least to some.
I cannot promise a lot of things. What I can promise is I will never make a website that's cluttered. So,
man.
I will make
Good
sure.
man.
Yeah, I think it's important to that's why I could have just made an ugly WordPress site or something, but I tried to make it pretty and visual because
It's very nice.
It's
It looks great.
it's what
Very
it's
nice.
really how I
It looks great.
So I promise it'll never be cluttered. And I I had a lot of questions before making the site. There could have been a button just for videos, but then videos it would just be another button. But so instead I decided to integrate it into the places where it made sense to integrate them. So there's I'll think through all the information and make sure it's not crappy. That makes sense. The one thing to know, one of my questions was someone registered Provincetown365 at gmail.com, so now we have that question answered. And then, so the one thing this website can't do is host big files. So the 2 documents that I have here are being hosted on the town website. So if you click on this, it's actually downloading off of the town website. So the files that you emailed, I can't physically do them myself. So they have to be uploaded to the town website, and then I can take the link off of that and put it on the website. So so don't email me something I can do a photo or something like that, but I can't do a humongous PDF or PowerPoint or PDF. So shouldn't be a problem, right?
No, anything that has to go that can be emailed to me, and then actually it does make sense for us to have kind of a clearinghouse of information on the on the town server too.
Yeah.
So I think it works well.
Okay, cool. Okay, so that's it. Any questions about the site? So, thank you.
Thank you.
So the big thing that's left, and I don't have answers for us, I just have information to talk about, is how we're going to communicate internally. So we talked about having an external communication, but then also having a way to share information amongst each other. For this, I think of it, it's obviously for us, but it's also a communications tool. It presents our brand, it presents who we are, like gets us out into the community. It's an easy place for people to get information. Internally, like we don't obviously want all of our internal conversations happening in front of the world. So there's a couple ways we can choose to do it. There's no like silver bullet. I tried to like find something that was a silver bullet, but there really isn't one. So we already have a listserv, and a listserv is just a fancy name for a big email list with everyone included on it. So if you're not included on the listserv, talk to Gloria. And we use that listserv as just a way to announce meetings, to publish the agendas to each other, pass along information about the big group. When we break into smaller groups, though, I don't know if we want to, if there's going to be a listserv for every single small group, or I don't know how we want to do it. So it's not easy. The solution I like is Google Groups, but Google Groups are a lot easier when when people are on Google or have a Gmail account, and not everybody has a Gmail account. So I started this and added everybody to it. Only 13 people have accepted the invitation. I think there's still like 35 people who haven't even accepted the invitation to the Google group yet. So the advantage of a Google group is that you can, like, so this is my email box. I don't think there's anything embarrassing up there now. If there is, it's fine. So
I'll text Mark right now.
Yeah. I get a lot of emails, and I'm on a lot of groups. So I used to be a journalist. I belong to this secret journalist listserv that you guys can now see. It was written up. It was uncovered by conservative media, and it was a big deal, like maybe 4 years ago. So you can see here, like, these are journalists who love to talk about things all the time. So like someone wrote, whatever, they started a topic of conversation called empathy for the devil, whatever that means, and 91 people have responded to it. So the advantage of using Google Groups is that with the listserv we have now, if someone writes an email and then someone responds to it, all the emails come as individual emails to your email box. So like if you actually want to have a conversation, it becomes unmanageable because every single person who chimes in, it's a new email, it's hard to follow, it's like you don't know what's going on. For this one, so 91 people have responded to this. So Katha Pollock, who's a Nation writer, like wrote an idea about something, whatever. And then another journalist, this is the conversation. So like the conversation flows and is organized into one space. So like it doesn't become cumbersome for people to, you don't have to feel bad about writing a lot of email or like having a conversation in an email form because it gets organized easily. So that's the advantage of it. The other advantage of it, so you can get the email of the conversation sent directly to your email box, or you can go, this is our Gmail, this is our Google group. You can also get the format where you go to a website and you can see all the messages that have been posted. You can also, like, I uploaded the PDF of the report just to see how it worked. So you can host files to the Google group as well. So it's really convenient and organizes a lot of information easily, but it's kind of, not everyone's on Gmail.
Well, and so people can just get a Gmail account.
Yeah, you can, if you all want to do that, that's a potential
I
solution.
have one.
So that non-Gmail users?
Yes, you can.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
so
You don't have to get a Gmail.
exactly. So you would.
It's just a little tricky.
Yeah, you would log into this thing. It wouldn't come to your email box. You have to go to this thing here, and I can show you how to do that if you can't figure it out. I'd be happy to show everyone and anyone how to do it.
And just a
Could you
question.
have some instructions?
Oh yeah, that's fine.
And if you go get, so you're using another email account, but if you go get a Gmail account, you could have the Gmail forward them to your other one.
Oh, yeah.
So it's not like you have to use two accounts.
Yeah. So they're just, I know everyone has different levels of comfortability and computer literacy, so I don't want to just assume everyone's cool with this and just
So
go.
did you send an invite to everybody on the list?
I did.
Okay.
Only like 15 people have.
So we didn't get one. I know, I posted the first meeting and I was like, well,
So.
it looks like 4 people saw it.
So after our meeting today,
I saw it.
Rob, when did you send that?
Like in December when we first met.
So
Yeah.
the people that met, that didn't come to the second meeting, you don't have their.
Yeah, well, why don't we, at the end of the meeting, I'll stick around with my laptop and I can see if you were invited and I can re-invite you if you're not on it and we can clear it up with individuals.
Can you
Well, you
request
have all the
that?
emails.
You can also request.
And you have all the emails.
And I have everyone's
from
email,
the
yeah.
listserv.
So if we're into this, I just didn't want to like do all this work if you guys weren't into the Google groups. But if we are, then I'll make sure everyone's on it and that we're all.
Well, you come on to my idea
What?
about making another webpage.
Oh yeah, or I can make another webpage. Well, so I looked into that too, actually.
Can we say we're all into the Google groups?
Well, you gotta hear all the options first.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Slow to roll.
Well, so there's the Google group idea. You can also use a Facebook page, but that's a little, I don't know if you guys are on Facebook or not. So that's that. I also found this website called Muut. Muut, I don't know, and made a page for us to see. So this is another way to communicate with each other. So like I made all the categories for the different breakout groups that we potentially will be having. So you can post conversations under those different things and then follow the conversations on Muut. So it has a headline. This was my agenda for the community housing agenda. Talk more, talk a bit more. And then someone else commented, which was me. And then I uploaded a photo.
I was talking?
It's not was talking. Well, it's not working, but I guess it didn't work. But so it's just another. If you weren't comfortable with the Google groups, it's just another way to have a conversation online without doing the Google groups. But
I actually really like that because I get a million emails every day. Not a million, but a lot.
yeah.
So the idea that I don't have to be bombarded with it and I can just go to a website when I want to look at something.
And sometimes you don't want to see all the stuff about, sidewalks. Sometimes you just want to see about the pier.
Right. So you can.
So you don't have to wade through all the conversation. You can just go to your topic.
Right. So you can go to the topic and
Oh, I
just
like
look
that.
at community
Is that
housing
it?
stuff.
I like that.
Is that a server that can also house documents?
It can house I uploaded that photo and it worked when I was at home, but it didn't work
Can
today.
you buy
but
like storage space?
I think so, yeah. I didn't look too far into it, but
You
yeah,
can use it as a file organization tool as well.
I think so.
What's the name of this site?
MUUT.
M-U, what is it, German or something?
I think it's
Swedish?
technology,
Oh.
funny name, Muut. So our site's www.muut.com/Provincetown365. So I made it private, so I'd have to invite people to this too.
And this would be like what I was saying before, like a clipboard.
Yeah.
This would be like a working website where we go to let everyone know the progress we've made individually and as subgroups, and to ask
Amongst
questions.
the subgroups or
Yeah.
amongst the larger
Yeah.
group.
Yeah, talk amongst yourselves, that whole
I
thing.
kinda like this one better than the Google.
Yeah, I do too.
Group too.
It's a little easier to use.
It's more
Email
like,
fatigue.
it's more like a project management site in that you can
Okay.
have individual.
Did I call it or did I call it?
I'm a Google group disciple.
I know, I'm like,
love
Google
Google
Groups
Groups,
sucks.
But I think this might be easier to use and sort of, yeah.
Just to throw something completely different in, there's this program called Asana,
Uh-huh.
and that is more towards actually having tasks.
Okay.
Like there's a project, and under the project, there's like steps.
Okay.
So it's more, instead of talking about things, it's more focused on doing things.
How do you spell it?
Asana, Asana.
ASANA?
Yes,
Okay.
Asana.
Or
Yeah.
just Google it?
There's like a million different
I-
programs,
yeah,
and
we-
I didn't a lot of them you have to pay for, so I couldn't really look at them because I didn't want to spend $50 or $100 for myself to look at it. So I don't know if Asana, you can pay for it too. It's free, okay.
And I'm not sure how, everybody has restrictions, you're free up to this, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay.
But I had, one of my bosses did extensive research and found that.
Okay.
Would you be interested in meeting to look at it?
Sure.
Yeah. And I'll take, this isn't something we have to decide right now because we have the listserv, so there's a way for us to communicate right now, so it's not like this pressing problem. But so you and I can look at this on it too and figure it out, and we can report back, I guess, next time. We can all make a decision next time, I guess. Okay, that's all I have about internal communication stuff. The next item too. So.
This is the more talking part.
Okay, so the one thing we talked about doing today was having a visioning process. I had a conversation, I thought a lot about it. I talked to Gloria, I talked to Jen, and there's like a lot of things that we all have to do as a group, I think. And coming up with a vision is sort of hard to do when you don't know how the group is going to act or what we actually want to do or if we're a nonprofit or not or what our structure is like that. So writing a vision is probably not what we need to do right now. But in my estimation, and you guys can tell me, again, if I'm wrong, this is just my best guess of what like structure and thinking about the group we need to do before we start actually doing stuff. And I think I mentioned last time, this is how we structure the canteen, and this is how sort of we work in our professional relationship. The things that I think we need as a group are a mission, guiding principles, the nuts and bolts of our group structure, like how we work, a vision, and a plan, a long-term plan, or like an action plan. So to me, so the difference, these are all sort of, so that we're all on the same page about what the difference of those things are. In my mind, a mission sort of describes four things: what we do, who we are, who we're doing it for, and why we do it. If we're using the analogy of like playing a game, the mission is us defining what game we're playing. So football, for example, we're gonna play football is the mission. Guiding principles explain the rules that we're playing by. So it explains to ourselves and other people who read our guiding principles what are the aspirations we have, like what are the aspiration rules we live by, and also just what it describes the culture and personality of our group. And then the group structure is the third thing, and that's sort of the nuts and bolts of the guiding principles. So whereas the guiding principles are like, there's going to be a field and we're going to run up and down the field, the group structure sort of clearly defines the rules, how many people are on the team, how the team, who hikes, who, I don't really know football, sorry. But you know what I'm saying, like it gets more into the nuts and bolts of how we operate. A vision is sort of a weird thing. A vision to me is a narrative or an image of where we're going or what we hope to achieve. So it's an actual story or narrative of what the game looks like. So if we were to write a vision about football, we would talk about the beauty of the game and how it made us feel. Like a game we played, how it made us feel, the light on the grass, how we got great exercise, and like how the teamwork was amazing and how it brought us to a great end or something. We won. So it's a way for us to feel inspired and sort of have a guidepost or an endpoint in mind. And we can also share that to people outside of the group. And it should be sort of a narrative, something exciting. And then the last is the plan. So that's like the actual rules, nuts and bolts of like how we're going to make our vision a reality. Oh, sorry.
There it is.
There you go. So I know that's a lot and sort of maybe confusing. Does that all make sense, or like, is that, okay. What I did, and Jen and I sort of talked today a little bit, and to try to move things along, I made a draft mission, draft guiding principles, and a draft group structure. And they're just drafts, just an idea of like a framework, and just to get the conversation going. So we all can read this and say it's horrible, let's not do any of this, but at least we've started the conversation, and
I'd rather you didn't say it was horrible.
Well, I have 20 copies there. So, and I bought a bunch of red pens, so you all can feel free to rip it apart.
That was brave of you to give out red
That's okay. So if you want a red pen, you can take a red pen. Okay, cool.
I got my pen, but I didn't like red.
He has a big red Sharpie.
Just put a big X over the whole page.
Everybody have one?
Yes. Or the teacher used to write awk.
So I guess we didn't really have a structure of how we're doing stuff today. My suggestion is that we read through the draft mission, and then if we want, we can tear it apart and add to it or start over again. I don't know how we want to spend our time today. We haven't decided how we want to do that. So this is just...
Think about it and get back for the next meeting?
Oh yeah, we can think about it and get back to the next meeting.
Yeah.
Should we go?
Yeah, I think we should.
I've got a comment because I think I really like this, but the one thing that I think we should consider up front and sort of see where we all are on is this notion that what does resilient mean? So we use the word here, and I think it's really at the core of what we're doing. And
Goals and objectives as well.
yeah, and to me, resilient really talks about that interplay of all of the different things, which, the headlines are housing and jobs. But, I think one of the things that I saw that came out of the AIA report, the DART report, that was really promising to me was it didn't separate those things out. And it didn't try to tackle problems like they're not connected to every other problem. So I think addressing resiliency and kind of pledging that that an understanding of that is this up front is important.
So defining resiliency for this group.
Right.
I like the word interplay because we were struggling with that idea of how to communicate the sense that it was a dynamic, an organic thing that's going to be interrelated. I'm writing this down too, so you didn't necessarily do that.
Okay.
And at the end, it should be, I think you mean through direct action.
Directed.
Yeah.
Directed
Or
action.
directed.
Right.
Yeah.
To a certain extent, the AIA in their program kind of put together, they started a word cloud, which is generally what I do with clients at the beginning of a project. I generally start with the word cloud to create the vision statement.
Yeah.
And the largest words on that cloud have to be in that mission statement, generally, is how I usually work. And I think they gave us some pretty good head start for both vision and mission.
Yeah.
Because they created really two word clouds that speak to, first of all, mission and second of all, vision. So I think we can look back and take some of those ideas.
Can we put that up somewhere? Is that available, the word clouds?
Yeah.
It's in the report.
It's on page 5.
You're Ryan White, right?
Yeah, 5 and 6.
Oh, you talking about that thing where the letters were all in different directions and stuff?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Remember they asked everyone
There you
to.
go.
No, I get it. My mom had me do
Yeah,
that kind of stuff too,
yeah.
but it wasn't all like that.
Yeah.
It was all, it was in a line.
Yeah, and they one kind of speaks more toward mission. I mean, there's words in there that'll work for mission, vision, and also guiding principles.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the words on that cloud are really talking about guiding principles. Whereas the other cloud is really talking about mission.
Should we read aloud what you have?
Sure.
Or what do you think? Well, or you want to look at it and come back later with it?
Yeah.
Okay. Look and bring it back later.
Okay. So we'll take this next group. We'll take this draft. We'll look at we'll better incorporate the word cloud and some of the work that was already done for us in the reports.
And if anybody wants to, in your suggestions for how this might be, if you could write down sample sentences.
Yeah.
Like rather than sort of say, oh, well, you should say something, lolly la about law. Actually say a sentence that we could pick apart and combine with other sentences. That would be great.
And I think it goes a long way in communicating with the overall town, with the community, in taking what was said in that meeting and incorporating it into the vision statement. That way we can go to town hall meetings and say, this is what you said you wanted. This is the reaction to that request. So that we're one step ahead of them. Which is always
For those coffee clatches.
The group structure, depending on whether or not we do go with the 501(9)(a), that will be affected, but because there are legal roles that we'll need to fulfill. So that means that they could be in addition, but that's also something we could get feedback from that, because we'll need, you know, a treasurer and a clerk so that will add to that.
Yeah. Well, I think maybe we should all read the mission and draft guiding principles and then incorporate like the stuff that we just said and talk about it next week. The draft group structure, I think we should actually talk about it tonight in a little bit more detail to like really start teasing it out, because we don't have anything decided about how we make decisions about if we're having working groups or not, about who's not in charge or who is in charge, or if we're unanimous decision or whatever. So I know we talked a little bit about it the first meeting, and I guess we can maybe make final decisions next week, but I don't know, let's at least start a conversation about how we're actually going to get things done. So I forget exactly what we said last week, or last time we met, that we were going to meet twice a month. Was
We
that
actually decided once a month, and it was
Okay.
the second Wednesday of the month.
Sorry. I remember that wrong. I
I
gave
thought it was
us,
bi-monthly, yeah.
I gave us a more ambitious time frame, sorry.
I know, yeah,
Oh,
once
that
a
was the
month
idea,
is-
that the subgroups would meet more often,
Right.
or whenever they wanted,
Subgroups
but
would
the
meet,
big
yeah.
groups would meet once a month to check
Yeah.
in with each other.
Second Wednesday of the month at 5:30?
5:30, yeah.
So we're not gonna meet next,
In 1 week, at 5:30, we'll be meeting.
okay, that's the official meeting?
Yeah, it's the second one.
So that we get our February meeting in,
Yeah.
because this is our January meeting.
I think it's good that we have that, because we need that momentum now. We've kind of lost
Yeah.
2 months.
So for the meetings, just to talk about the meetings in general, last time we talked about having a note taker, and Jen, I guess you're taking notes again this time?
Reluctantly, yeah.
Okay. So,
But we'll have, someone will volunteer at the beginning of every session to do that. We'll make that the top agenda item.
We could have a
Yeah.
rotating
Yeah.
clerk where everybody
Yeah.
takes a turn at it.
Yeah.
I think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
It's a sucky job, so
Yeah.
it's good to share the suckiness.
I think we need to decide on the format for that as well, though, because I think that Jen did a great job of capturing everything that went on, but some of it really wasn't worth capturing. I mean, it should be, you know.
You're welcome to do it.
No, I don't want to do it, because I can't even read my own writing. But, you know, all I'm saying is that maybe a little bit summarizing, you know, not going into so much detail about
When
who
you get
said
into
what.
summaries though, you lose, then you're putting your own judgment on it.
Yeah.
I think that Jen actually did a great job voicing everybody's comments. So she started to summarize, and she's making a judgment as to what comment was.
I kind of try to do a little bit of both. I try to make sure I got everybody's comments in and give you a structure for what the conversation meant. You know, like, oh, we all seem to be talking about this issue, and then we moved on to this issue.
Right. And I think it'll be, I think you're in a hard position right now doing the sucky job. And I think it'll be less hard as we go along, one, as everybody starts to know each other, but also as we're just reporting back.
Right.
These main monthly meetings are checking in on the subgroup. So right now, it's a bit scattered.
brainstorming.
Because we're coming up with. So, Jen, I think what you did was good, and I think you should keep
Thank
doing
you.
it.
Thank you, Jen.
I think on the town website, if you look under the boards, the town boards, there's a rundown about meeting minutes and the gist of like what they should have, and really I think that.
I'm actually not going to do this tonight. After this sort of conversation, I'm just going to say, if somebody else would like to take this over from this point forward.
Yeah, okay, I'm not being
No, I'm just
critical.
saying I'm just saying that I don't want to do it.
I also think at the last meeting, we decided not to do like official professional minutes.
Right.
That the most important thing to get
Action
down was like the specific actions we as a group decided to take. And I thought Jen did a really good job of actually giving some of the conversation behind that, even though I don't think the group really necessarily decided on that. So I'm really happy with Jen's minutes. I feel bad for her because she's so good at it.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that she should keep doing it.
Well, being good at it just means that I did it. I mean, I guess I'm the one with the pen writing it down.
You did it,
so.
you did a good job. Because the other thing
Yeah.
is, I think about the audience, and for me, the audience is the people who would have liked to have been there but couldn't be.
Yeah.
It's not for the naysayers, the people who don't care. It's for the people who can do. And if I miss the next meeting, I'd like to have as close to the experience of being here as I can without being here.
Yeah,
We
it
did that.
captured the character of the meeting, I would say.
But I still don't want to do it.
Yeah.
How are they available?
I'm going to take the rough notes for this, but I'm not gonna do it again.
Who's
I'm not reading a thing about how to take minutes.
Yeah,
This is not.
I actually, my point in saying that was, I don't think anyone should read about how to take minutes, and let's just document the meeting.
Okay.
To the best of whoever's ability is taking the minutes at the time.
I do.
Making sure that we get down any action items that we all agree on.
Can we get name tags for the meetings
Oh,
so
that's
that it
a
would
great
be easy
idea.
for us to begin to associate names and faces?
Yep.
And just another thing on the minutes, if we're being videotaped, then
Right.
it's redundant to have minutes so they can be more
Yeah.
fungible.
They can be more
Large scale
action
topics.
oriented.
Topics and task lists versus actual meetings.
Yeah, the idea I thought behind the minutes, especially initially, was for us to, because if you want to go back and refer to like something someone said or some particular thing, you're not going to sit there and go through a 2-hour video trying to remember when that moment was and who might have said it and what it was. And the whole point of having a written minute thing is to be able to scan through that and be like, oh, this is the point where we're talking about this, and who, oh, that's who said it. And then you go to the video and find that person, and then you can get a whole sense of like, oh, that was a really smart thing. So that was what I was thinking.
So the idea is like the minutes are an outline for
the video.
basically. So
Yeah.
if you want to get bored down to the details of the meeting, you can watch the video.
Right.
But the minutes should be able to sort
Like
of
a map.
help you get to the point and the
Yeah.
details that goes on.
Yeah.
And that sort of is easy. It makes it easier for us because we don't have to spend 1,000 minutes taking minutes, and we don't have to talk about it anymore.
Sounds good to me.
So for every meeting, that's where we are, I think.
I think so, too. Oh yeah, every meeting. Yeah. So
Moderator.
we didn't. I don't know if you're officially the moderator or how your role is incorporated into the structure of this group.
Well, I mean, I'm putting together the agendas. I guess in a way I'm a moderator.
And then, is someone going to lead the meetings, or are you going to lead the meetings, or is it going to be just individual people? On the agenda, you'll assign someone to lead each task, I guess?
Oh, I didn't assign people. This is what was agreed on at the last minute. Like, you
Okay.
volunteered. I
Right.
didn't.
Well, I didn't volunteer. Someone volunteered.
You're volunteering.
I guess that's a group decision.
Yeah. I think it makes sense, right? Anything on the agenda to have a name next to it, that person sort of takes.
Yeah, if you're going to be moderating, then anybody who is, I guess, when we break up into subcommittees, somebody will naturally say, oh, I'll take this to Gloria, and then you can just reference them when they come up at the meeting, and they can get up and kind of present.
So Gloria sort of acts as the moderator for the moderators.
Yeah.
You sort of create the agenda, you
Like
post
the
the
point
agenda.
person?
The
Is
point
that
person,
what it
fine.
Yeah.
And then, so there's no technical moderator. Gloria is the
Fearless
point
leader.
person, and then each agenda item has somebody who's going to be taking care of it. And then I hope the idea is we have every single meeting's been recorded. I think it's awesome to have videos. So do we agree that it's like we should have tried to get it done every meeting? That's important.
That's a good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really important for transparency and to document our efforts.
Yeah.
What about on the subcommittees, though? Are those gonna be, or, I think that makes it. that's
That might be a
harder.
little bit harder.
Yeah, so just the main week,
Yeah.
Monday meetings.
And that's okay, because all the subcommittees are going to be updating, so
Correct.
I think that makes sense.
Okay. And then we'll.
But I'll still post the subcommittee meetings, for instance, so that they're available to the general public to see when they're happening and what the agenda items are.
I imagine there'll be minutes for the subcommittee meetings.
I think those minutes are going to be important.
Yeah.
Okay, so then I said, like a website, online moderator, and I was only thinking that because obviously I made the website, but someone checking the Gmail or the email box, and someone making sure that the comments don't go crazy on whatever format we decide. It just needs to be someone's job. I can do it because I've already been doing it, but I guess I was just thinking about permanent jobs. And I wanted to talk to you guys too about a communications point person. We are a big group, and hopefully we will be talking to the press or talking to people. I know in groups that I've been in the past, it's been important to have one person who's sort of the contact for the press, so that we're speaking with a unified voice, so that they're not getting like 6 messages and people are getting their wires crossed. So we don't have to necessarily do it today, but I don't know, just something to think about. I think it's important that we have someone whose job it is to be the point person. And
wouldn't it make sense to use somebody with a journalism background?
There you
That's what you think.
Walk into that one.
Or a legal background.
No. Never put a lawyer in front of a microphone.
I'm perfectly comfortable doing it if I don't mind that, and I'm good at talking to press, and I think through every single thing I say, and I know how to organize interviews and stuff like that. So
Can you officially be considered the volunteer for that?
yeah, I'm happy doing it.
Okay.
Great.
So did you volunteer also for D?
I guess.
Is that what I understood?
Sure. Why not? Well, maybe it'll be a group.
Yeah, you can.
A rotating, you have a rotating thing.
You can't assign everything to all.
Yeah.
If you learn the ropes, and then when it's time to rotate, you can show the next person how you went about it.
That sounds like
And we can pass the baton.
I'll volunteer for the web
okay.
moderator.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Did we decide to skip over guiding principles for now? It's okay if we did.
We're just working.
Yeah, because we're gonna come back.
We're gonna do the same thing as the mission statement. So everyone read the guiding principles, look back at the reports we have, and then we'll have a larger conversation where you actually bore into it next time. Okay. So the way that I understand it, and I guess we're going to go through the different recommendations today, or maybe the next meeting, or both those meetings. But we were thinking about having a working group for every single category of the recommendations, was my understanding. But I guess we also want to decide if maybe some of them aren't needed, but maybe we want extras, or at some point we have to decide what the working groups are and what their purviews are and what they're actually doing.
Aren't people just going to volunteer to sign up for them according to their?
The question is, first of all, how many do we need all of these? Do we need more of these than these?
Can some be combined?
I think some could be combined at first and possibly split off into subgroups later. But I think you could probably get away with like 4 groups there.
What's tactical urbanism? I must have forgotten.
It's sort of like small temporary changes that are initiated, often against zoning regulations, by private citizens. Like going out one night and painting sharrows all over the street for bike lanes, or
food trucks.
You know, food trucks are listed as one of them. But I would not recommend doing that at this point in time since they're against our zoning bylaw.
In the presentation, the example was used, like a group was formed like this for Alexandria, I think, or one of the groups that they gave an example of. And to show the community who they were and to sort of get momentum moving, they painted a building, and then in the center of town. And then by painting that building, it drew attention to them. It also gave people something to do while they were having a long-term plan. It gave them like a short-term goal to work as a group together, feel good about. So there's things that we can do that we'll call tactical urbanism, whether it's painting a sidewalk or planting a tree. I don't know what it is.
Painted garden on in the parking lot.
Yeah.
That would be good.
Exactly.
Paint a whole garden if we don't want the fish.
So it's like, short-term, easily attainable goals that make life in Provincetown happy, I think.
Well, it seems to me that, almost like what we call the matrix structure of, that tactical urbanism would be really a part of the PR for each of these items, really. There would be different kinds of things that would be happening that are part of it, it seems to me.
Yeah, so it's like it's a strategy of each one of the groups.
Yeah, exactly. That's like tactical urbanism and governance. I wasn't sure I was going to put that on this list either, because neither of them are necessarily their own specific subgroup.
But they're necessary for each of the groups.
They're necessary for all.
Exactly.
S is the word, which I don't want to say again, because I don't want to be in charge of it, but outreach
Well, yeah.
for each of them.
You can call
So
it
so that if we think about it as a little bit of a, what did you call it, a web, a matrix, then there'd be certain things that need to run through all of them.
Yeah. Although I thought the way that I understood governance from the report and from how we were talking about was creating an actual group to inform town people before town meetings, so that there's like a process by which to.
So interface with governance.
Yeah, like it was trying to get decisions made and things talked about and education happened before town meeting, so that we don't just show up at town meeting and have a non-conversation about a really important financial matter.
I think realistically, though, each subgroup is going to have to be the main educating body, as opposed to relaying their information to a governance group, which is then going to be doing education and outreach, because nobody's going to know what they're doing as well as they are.
So education is another thing that goes across, outreach is another thing that goes across.
Well, I think if you look at like Alexandria's program, a lot of the really successful programs that we've seen in Alexandria and Portland and those kind of places, they've had a very strong, very common kind of appearance to marketing package, maybe you'll say, but a very tied together appearance. People know that this is a project by 365 because it's identifiable as one of those projects. And I think that gets people on board to a certain extent. So you have to take kind of a marketing outlook and apply it over all those groups and say
we get a good brand.
When we put our product forward into the community, we want it identified as our product, and this is how we do it.
So what's really interesting about that, I just came back from, the reason why I wasn't at these meetings, I was in Louisiana, in New Orleans, and they had P with a degree mark above, outside of maybe 9 different selected places, and each one, it was part of a museum series that went on for the summer or for the fall or something. And you just saw P and a degree right next to it. So the idea of getting a logo is, I think, a great idea for us to have too, because that might be the way in some of the work that we do that we have the tactical urbanism.
Yeah.
But I also think it's important, as you say, is to have somebody who has the graphics, the way in which we actually communicate things has to be clear, it has to be brief, you're going to get their attention, it has to be more of a marketing focus. I think that's something that town government needs in general, is a little more, if you will, eye-catching and idea-orienting and a little more fun way of attracting attention. And these little events can help, but it needs to have a uniform look so that it's identified with this larger mission.
It's like campaigns that actually match the spirit of the town. Like the town is this vibrant, like exciting, artistic, bohemian thing.
Yeah, so let's look like it.
Yeah.
It can be anything from a logo to a graphics package,
right,
to just a simple palette of color.
Right.
So I would take the things that we've said about logo and brand and not put them as something that goes across all the groups, but put it with one of the groups, or put it with one of the, like the communications point person, maybe that's part of what they think about. I'm not sure. I'm not trying to be more.
I've already made a committee of the 3 of us.
I'm not making enough
to come up with it.
Well, it's kind of it's a group.
They're on the committee.
I think it is a group of a couple of people in itself that acts as a funnel, an information funnel, and it incorporates the person who's speaking to the media, and incorporates somebody who's got the graphic design skills, which I would hope we have plenty of that in this town.
Eileen Mitnick
we
and Ali
have
Baldwin
people
might want to be on that.
And so have you an idea of when these individual work groups are moving forward with something, how we ensure that the right hand knows what the left hand is doing?
Well, I think the idea is that those groups are going to meet, and then we're going to come back to this big group's going to meet once a month. So then I would guess, tell me if I'm wrong, a spokesperson will be picked from each of those groups to give an update about how what's happening, what's going on. The one question I had that I wrote down here, though, is in terms of like decision making, are the groups going to be making decisions, or are they going to be bringing ideas to this group and then votes on decisions, or are groups sort of given the power to do the research, make decisions, do things, and they're just reporting back and taking advice and guidance from the larger group?
I think they make decisions.
Yeah.
Especially when people start, we've got this relatively manageable group right now, because people are away. When people start coming back, you want 45 people making one decision?
No.
That'll make me just want to blow my head off.
Yeah, because they're the board
somebody else is in.
At some point, though, it's going to be a monetary decision.
Well,
And it's tough
maybe,
for the
but
individual.
let the groups figure that out. And the big group can participate and be advisory or whatever, but it's ultimately the people who've done the work on a specific topic.
Right.
That
That's
decide
what it is
how
to be an
it's
activist, is
Yeah.
you take the ball and you run with it.
Yeah.
And you let the captain know that you have the ball and you're going.
Yeah, because it's the
And you
group
would
that has all the.
But you're taking it where you want it to go.
If the group has done the work, they get to make the decision.
Right, yeah.
But this is also why we need to go back to having a mission,
Right.
having a definition, because we're going to be a group of people with different backgrounds, different opinions. So we need to be able to go back to, wait, what are we trying to achieve here? What is our mission? And somebody can just call out to, hey, let's read out loud what our mission is. And so this is why it's going to be important for everyone to spend that time now to establish what all that needs to be established. It's not the fun work that we all want to start doing, but it's going to be very important to establish that very well from the beginning. Otherwise, it's just going to be
Right, otherwise the committees just go off whatever way, but I think that's right.
So there's not a final vote, but there's something to go back to say, hey, the long-term big picture is this. This is what we're trying to achieve.
Well, yeah, that's what
And-
Rob's
and
talking
we're
about, sort of
gonna disagree.
envisioning the story, and what is
Yeah.
the story, and, you know, what's the
So-
context of it, and where do we all see that going?
Yeah.
And then another piece that has to come in, and I'm hoping that I'll be able to help with this, is that as you start working in your groups and coming up with these ideas and these actions, that I will make sure that your group gets in contact with the appropriate staff person at the town level. So if someone wants to work on Macmillan Pier and do like the farmer's market and stuff like that, it would be good to talk to Rex, to Dominic about losing parking. Rex and I have been talking since last year about doing a town farmer's market instead of a private run one, so that would be another thing. So anyway, so as the groups are working, I'll make sure that...
Let's put that on the list.
And actually, David has shot our idea down multiple times.
Oh.
It's all right, we're
No,
still...
anyone can
we've
take
been-
it.
gonna
we've been-
tussle.
It's okay, because we've
You
been
can
skiing
take
at
it.
George's.
I don't want the town to take it.
Oh, I
You can take it. Anybody else?
So anyway, so as the groups work and as we like go through these, I'll make sure that everyone gets to talk to the people that they need to talk to in town.
So I want to make sure that the reason why I keep talking about the matrix is I want to make sure that what, let's say, the peer committee does and the decisions that are made by the working group that does the work, that they have check marked the box that says education. They've talked to the education committee, how should we get this out to people? They've talked to the communications people to talk about how do we say it with our one voice, our logo and everything. So the purpose for me of the matrix are, what do you call those kinds of committees that are not doing the extraordinary work on the pier necessarily, or the extraordinary work that's in the parking lot, or the extraordinary work that's going on with the bike trails.
Or the audit committee.
But they are the people that make sure that the logo is there, that the community's been educated about it.
Continuity.
Yeah,
Sort of.
and that's what keeps our brand up.
Yes.
Well, in some organizations, they're like subject matter experts. So you identify 2 or 3 people who are a combination of marketing and government relations, if we're going to go take something to town hall, to town meeting. And so you bring them in when you need them so that you're getting that perspective. So they advise and say, and then their job, I think, to all of us is to come back and say, here's how we're going to brand everything so that it looks nice and looks coherent and is coherent.
I think, Charlene, what you said, that basically if a subcommittee gets to a point where there's a need to put what they're doing out to the public, it gets funneled through the communications people.
Exactly.
Right. So they don't, you don't kind of on your own just say, I mean, you could put the word out and stuff, but if there's something that's to be presented, like, some message, if there's any point that a message is coming across, then you enlist all the people who, are
That's their expertise.
Yeah,
Their interest.
But I think there needs to be a bottom line. I think there needs to be a check and balance in some way to look at accountability. And I would say small groups making decisions is a very dangerous thing to put in place, because you have some verbally dominant people that can take a small group and you can come up with decisions that aren't really representative of the group's vision or mission statement.
I think that the idea of a small group making a decision is not that they go off and make, I mean, it's, the small groups are coming back monthly, in theory, to the big group, and the big group is hearing what they're doing and the path that they're going on and commenting, potentially redirecting if need be, but they're also doing, the people within that group, the bigger group, are also the ones who are doing the checks and balances, as you said. There's before, okay, now you've got the small group and the decision and everybody's signed off in theory on it. The big group has said, yes, you're doing a great job, keep going. And then the communications group or the marketing people or whoever say, okay, so this is now how we take that, your choices and your decisions, and this is the way you go and present it to the world. So there are, it's, I guess, I didn't mean to imply that the small group, in my opinion, should run off into the sunset and do whatever it is they want. They're not. But they're the ones who get the final say after a lot of input.
Rob and I just talked about this this afternoon. We were talking about the big picture. We were talking about Obama and the sense of how do you work on something together where you're all taking different pieces of it. And it's a really interesting problem for me because I'm not for all the things in the DART proposal. I don't like the zoning changes. There's some definite things that I personally absolutely do. I'm like, well, let's skip that. We don't want that in there. So there are going to be times when members within the larger group disagree. Like, this isn't like manna from heaven, the 10 Commandments, that we're all going to be like, no, 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 we're going to honor thy father and thy mother or you're going to be out. It's part of the problem I have a little bit with the idea of branding our identity too strongly because I want to be an activist, I want to be a volunteer, I want to get the thing I care about going. I don't necessarily want to get too cozy with the identity of something that I don't want to have to sit there and defend something that I'm not personally for. I can, if other people are for that and they want to make those zoning changes and they want to work toward it, by all means, do it. I'm not going to vote for you. I'm not going to speak in favor for you. I'm not going to fight you in this room on it. So I think that we all have to learn how to tolerate the differences amongst ourselves, which would be a lesson for us for the whole town, tolerating the differences we have in the larger scheme. And knowing also that people who hear about DART are not going to be like, oh, you guys are like, the saviors of the community. Because some people are not going to like some of these ideas. I don't like these ideas. I like the ones I like.
Has there been communication about the decision-making process?
No, this is
how it is, yeah. So that's why I was thinking, just to end that, that's why I was thinking the individual groups take the ball and run. And, if I'm on a group with something and we are all like-minded, and I am one of those dominant people, but I can get bullied, it's happened. But if we see something that we want to run with, that's I'm just saying, I don't want to be contentious this early on, but I'm not really here to bend I want to see the parking lot moved. And that's why I'm here.
I don't want it to move, and that's why I'm here.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting for us to work with each other with perhaps competing goals and to still, and I'm still going to work for what I want, even if the whole group here says, no, that's not what we want. I'll go start my own group.
And even the DART team said that, as we go through these recommendations and evaluate them, that not all are going to be applicable to Provincetown. They were here for 3 days. They saw what they saw. They threw ideas out. And, some of them might not work for Provincetown, and that's okay.
The whole point of the small working groups is working through
what's been
recommended,
evaluate
what actually really
set
fits,
priorities,
and presenting our recommendations to the next group, and then going forward.
I think that's the essential word. Are they decisions or are they recommendations? I don't think any of us in this room really have the power or the money or the resources to actually take action on these things. The first step is to really make recommendations, and then also recommendations about how you would actually go forward to take action on that. But I think in terms of both the leadership of the working groups and also the leadership of the group overall, is that in some sense, yes, we are going to have to find consensus. I mean, if we can't find consensus in this room, then this town is never going to find consensus, and we are a bunch of contentious people in this town.
For an example of that.
Well, no, I'm tired of that part of it. It's like, yeah, I have my idea and it's the right idea. Somebody else thinks they have the right
that-
idea too.
I do think there are things here that we actually can take.
all agree
And,
on.
and I disagree with you in thinking that all these are just recommendations that we can make. I actually think that there are things in this
We're
report
actually-
that this particular group can move forward.
Yes, and I didn't mean that they were recommendations that didn't result in action, but the first thing you do is a recommendation about what it is and study it, and then you recommend actions that are based on that. It's just not, they're not decisions.
But you mean recommend actions to ourselves to take?
Like recommendations for the group to take, because this is a group.
But not to the
We
board,
have-
you mean, you're not suggesting like reporting to like the board of selectmen or?
Well, eventually, we may take some things to the Board of Selectmen,
Yes.
absolutely.
Or town meeting.
They're the
Yeah.
ones with the money,
Yeah.
they're the ones with the monies, the money bag here.
But a lot of this that we're talking about here feeds into our mission statement.
Yes.
And that's where we have to kind of go through the DART report as a group and somehow come up with consensus saying this is important, this is important, this is important.
I guess it's the
There's
difference
going to be
between
things
being.
in like zoning and stuff that
Yeah.
we're going to throw out the door probably.
I just get nervous because I just had this debate with another committee that I was on, where I thought I was on an action committee, and almost everybody, all the dominant people, believe it or not, I wasn't one of them, thought we were an advisory committee. And I was like, I have really no interest in spending my time doing a lot of work to advise somebody who may or may not take my good advice. So I see this as being activists. I know at some point we will, want to present our case to, enlist all the board people, all the town people and government workers, everybody, get everybody on board to begin with, and then we present it to the Board of Selectmen because they, there'll be things that they have to get involved in, I suppose. But ultimately, I see us as being activists, not advisors. We can advise each other and we educate ourselves and research, but we're activists, right?
I think so.
I'm here to get something done.
Yeah,
totally with you on that.
Right, okay.
And I think there are things we can get done that we could get done in the next few months. I think there are things we can get done.
Yeah.
I think we have to, or as a group we'll just dissipate. I know I will.
I just want to see action in big letters and advisory in small letters.
Yeah.
And you can be activists in a group like this, and that's where the tactical urbanism and that kind of things come into play.
And it should be fun,
At
it should
some
be
point,
exciting.
at some point, you can be activists up to a certain point, and then at some point, when it truly becomes a big picture thing, you have to go to the town,
Right.
and that's where
It's
you're an
working within the
activist, but
system.
you have to act as their advisor, and they have to believe that you are their advisor.
Right.
Well, we
And
are
more importantly, too, you
transformational.
have to advise the
Yeah.
community, which I think is
Yeah.
what sometimes falls to the end.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
can't fall to the end anymore. I
But
think
when
we
you
all
take
understand that.
take action through these tactical urbanism type actions that we will do, then the community says, okay, yeah, I see where you're going with that, and that's the education, and that's the advisory piece of it.
So we all gotta remember, this is a very long-term commitment.
Yes, it is.
This isn't gonna be next year we're
1 year.
done.
No,
This
no.
is 10, 15, 20 years
Exactly.
of DART committee. So, I mean, we're gonna have stuff that in the next 6 months will get done, but we also have to look at things that are gonna be done in 10 years, 5 years. I mean, we have to have long-term goals. So, I mean, we can sit here and talk about what we want and our differences, but until we break up into our groups and decide what's priority and what's not, and what we're gonna move forward on, we can go here all night and just talk
And I
about
think that the large group has to do that analysis and also do what can be direct action, what needs resources in order to fulfill, and to do that, where are the resources? Is it just the town? I mean, there's so much to look at and to.
Well, I mean,
excuse
that's
the
going back to
expression,
Rob's
process.
point. We do have to have a vision statement,
Yes.
and so once we determine that, that will really determine what our subgroups do.
Well, for purposes of a mission, I mean, one of the things, and I alluded to this earlier, but I mean, when I look at the list of task forces and then go back and look at the recommendations, there's one thing to me that I think is missing, and it's pretty core, but it's also really long-term, and it's really big, and that is about employment and employability and, creating that nexus, because, this isn't going to work, I think, if there's not something that's attracting people to work here. And that's not really, I mean, there are pieces of it in here, but I think that's like this big thing that has to be dealt with. And it is probably the hardest thing. So I don't think we should put it up there up front as, well, we got to solve this before we can do anything else. But I don't think it's in there, and I think it needs to be. Because I don't think this whole thing is sustainable without jobs.
It's a guiding
Well,
principle.
I mean, that's the whole point, is creating a year-round environment, right? So, I mean,
How many of
that,
these things do you think would create jobs?
How many of these would create jobs?
Yeah, because that's what I'm just assuming, that, we'll, you know, we build it and the jobs will come with it.
I think this is a small number of jobs. I think they're important jobs. I mean, you know, to Seattle, how important is Pike Place Market? It's huge, you know, but it actually probably employs only a couple thousand people. So, you know, if we do something here, does it employ 30 people, which is small, but it's important. But I mean, what I'm thinking is, you know, and we talked about this, an educational institution, you know, a research institution, something that brings people here, brings 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 people here from September to May. To me, that's the perfect fit. And it's not easy.
And that's not really realistic, to
Because
think
no
that you're
one
gonna bring
houses
3,000 people or 4,000 people to this town and have a place for them to live.
Well,
And, you know, and have our infrastructure handle that. So I don't think that's realistic. Do you want 1,000? Do you want 2,000? Do you want the people who already do consider themselves year-rounders to actually be here year-round? That already increases so you've got people in town already who do consider themselves year-rounders, but guess what? They're not getting their mail delivered year-round, so they're not really year-round. Keep those people here.
I think this is a good conversation, but it's also not
It's
about
not, yeah.
the structure of our group. So I think it's a conversation to have, but if we want to move on to that, we should, but
Yeah, could you,
not. That's all, I think that's all I have.
about the structure,
Yeah.
one thing is, you know, I see basically 4 categories, and somebody mentioned, I think you did, that it could be boiled down into 4 groups. And one is mobility, getting around. That's Champaign Road, that's the parking and transit. One is housing, community housing, where are these people gonna live, where are they gonna stay? And then the third is the waterfront, the pier, the product. What are we selling? You know, what is this gathering point, which would expand to include the jobs at some point. And then finally, marketing, you know, the outreach, the interface, you know. And by doing that way, the Champaign Road people can't be creating something in cross purposes with the parking and transit people, because, you know, the mobility issue has to be solved together. But I also think that, as Steve said, the housing and economic development has to be in there.
You know, creating a year-round economy is not just about
If you-
creating housing and they will come.
Well, if you looked at the report, actually, there is a significant amount of economics in there in regards to what the outcomes of the the 360, whatever, document says. There's going to be ocean front, oceanography, you know, marine biology place. There's going to be more places for sale of tourism things. I mean, and more transit. I think there was talking about some sort of
tours.
yeah. Or,
That's mine. Shark tours. We'll need divers, we'll need operators,
But
we'll
we do
need
have-
cage runners.
We do have the marine that is here,
Yes.
and it needs and it wants to be built up, and it can succeed, and it can bring thousands of people here to work, especially in regards to what we're talking about with the college as well. In Woods Hole and some of the more research vessels, we have some doing some out there now. Going to the Treasure Place can also be tapped into regarding they're doing something on Discovery right now.
I like the idea of us breaking into these, I mean, I like that it all fits neatly under those categories, and I think that we keep those 4 categories in mind, and if we all break up into the different groups, because, you know, the things that we're passionate about, small groups with small focus is going to be able to get more done, more research done, a stronger sense of direction. And what you do is that when you have your first meeting, is you say, okay, mobility, housing, marketing, what was the third one?
The waterfront pier.
Waterfront pier.
I would say civic.
So you say, yeah, so maybe the first thing you do at your subgroup meeting is take those 4 categories and list them in order of, like, what's your most dominant part of that. And then so make sure that in all your conversations, you're realizing that, all right, all those people that have, you know, if mobility is at the top of their thing, You have to make sure that you're always checking in with the other groups where mobility is the top of their thing. And you'll know who each other is, because
So isn't the whole
we have to
part
remember
of
that we're
this,
part of a
though?
web.
But isn't this all part of the same thing?
Yeah, but it's like
But
we're all in a big
economics,
web.
We're all here to increase economics, we're all.
But I think it's like we're all part of a big spider web, but there's some webs that are adjacent to each other, that are actually like a few threads away, and then there are other webs that are across the way. They're still connected to the whole, but it's not quite as relevant to decisions that you might try to make, like a bylaw or an amendment or something. You're going to want to make sure that you're not at odds with people who are also working on the same thing. Also, because you don't want to duplicate effort. So it just basically means communication. We have to be the model within our groups that we want to have for the whole community. We have to make our subgroups and communicate with other subgroups. It's as simple as that.
And that's why we have the small groups, so we can cover it all.
Exactly. And we go to the big meetings and we realize, and then we network, we have cocktails, and we figure out who do we need to talk to.
Okay, so I have maybe just to move on, I'd like to end this up. A suggestion I would have is maybe 3 or 4 people take this on, and by the next meeting, write up a idea as if we were going to have like a written out bylaw, or like write up what we've talked about and come up with what the groups are called, how decisions are made. Just come up with a structure, and then we can talk about it at the next meeting and say this is great, or say we need to make changes here or there. But we need to have that on paper. Someone needs to write it down.
And the vision as well, we're all going to be working on.
Yeah, we'll work on that too, but I already sort of, I wrote the mission, I wrote the grant, we'll at least we have those as drafts to
That
then
could be
work on
also
next week. Someone needs to
looking at
write
the
it.
economics and some of these other things within the mission, so it doesn't have to be.
A lot of those fall down to the guiding principles, because remember, those guiding principles should spread to all those groups.
Yeah. I mean, before breaking off, this group needs to get together and unite first, and decide and agree, and after that decide to obey to what is been decided. And so, what do we believe in? What are we here to do? And then you break, and then you can apply that to your smaller group. But the larger picture has to be better defined. Right now, we're a group of people that want to get things done. We have all this energy, but if we don't define what the group is, and if we can't speak about what the group is to others, we're gonna break off into smaller groups, but not groups that are gonna be working together.
So
and it's a question of viability.
Should we not deal with it then until should we deal with the mission and the guiding principles and everything first, and then?
I think having those as grounds that we can then go back to, and then when someone wants to take zoning in their small meeting, and they can read again the mission and say, let's just keep in mind that we may want this law to change, we may want, or I personally want this tacked on or what, but the big question is, does it go according to what our mission is?
We all are in here because we have such passion and interest, but a lot of experience as well. So if people could come back and say, I worked on the March on Washington in '93, and this is how we structured it, and take in all of the human nature and what really did work in small groups and what really just, didn't work and made a lot of conflict be happening and stuff. If we all could think about our personal experiences throughout our activist lives leading up to this point, then maybe we don't have to reinvent a bunch of the wheels again. And analytically take a look at that. I think that would save us time.
Do you mean for the mission?
So we're going to do
for the structure and the internal structure, decision making, all of that. Yeah.
So, all right, let's kind of bring this discussion around a little bit. So we have a draft mission, we have draft guiding principles. Avoiding order is what we're operative. I think that the draft guiding principles, when you look at 1, 2, 3, are really kind of generic statements. We strive to be action-oriented by, we strive to facilitate positive change by, we strive to be inspirational by. How about if everyone brings back a few sentences to the next meeting, we'll go over them, we'll come up with some really concrete things that would be, how we anticipate being action-oriented, that we can actually, discuss as a group and hopefully come to a decision on, so that we can have our guiding principles. The mission statement, I think it's
Well,
hard to ask people.
are those
to come-
three categories the categories we wanted to write sentences about? Like I just made those
Exactly.
up. So so I said we want to be action oriented, we want to facilitate positive change, we want to be inspirational.
I mean,
I don't know if those are-
I look at those as appropriate because sort of like Jen was saying, I look at this as an activist, action-oriented group. I do not look at this as an advisory committee. So to me, the phrases that you put out there are begging for answers that are more action-oriented. So I think it's reasonable for people, and like Michelle said, to use your experiences to come up with ways that you foresee this group taking action or facilitating positive change. And come up with something that could be guiding principles for the group. And I think that that can easily be accomplished next week as long as everyone looks at it and actually comes back with something concrete written down that we can all discuss.
Right. I think that also we've identified at least 4 things tonight that ought to be in the mission statement, beside looking at the 2, what do you call those things? Word clouds. And that is economic, marketing, mobility, and housing. I think those, in other words, we don't want a small group to violate in their best thinking and their activism, to violate the fact of our principles around economics, sustainable economy, marketing, mobility, and housing.
So every small group would have those as goals and objectives.
Well, they'd have to have that in front of them. They couldn't do anything contrary to that without coming back here and saying, we've had some questions about whether or not this idea we have is contrary to the idea of economic sustainability if we take away the parking lot.
What was it again? Is economics, marketing?
I heard economics, marketing, mobility, and housing.
Oh, those.
And then somebody mentioned a specific area that was in the dark thing, and that was the pier and
The waterfront development. But they're really economic development.
But those are all economic development, I think. But if we just have economic development as the overarching thing.
So can I circle back to what Gloria was saying earlier about presenting our ideas next week? Because we could be here all next week discussing that. How about we each email you, and then whatever the overlying, like what everyone kind of agrees on, we present the top 3.
I'm very happy to do that, and I'll probably more than 3, just so we
Well,
have
I
more
mean,
to discuss,
but just
yeah.
an example, because I'm sure there's an underlying tone between all of us that if we each sent you what our
That sounds great,
senses
but
are.
let's set a deadline. If we're meeting on Wednesday, I would like to have it by Monday.
Right.
So that I have a chance to process it and integrate things.
And just on the mission statement, generally speaking, I've always seen it work out much better for the mission statement without getting into the weeds, to get pretty specific. These are our goals. This is what we want to do.
Yeah.
You want to avoid any general statements, you want to avoid any generalizations. You want to be very specific so that 3 years down the road, you can look back and say, am I following this, and this? Yes. Or in our decision making, because it could be an entirely different group of people,
Right.
urban planning goes out 20, 30 years in the future. So you want to have a very specific mission statement and very specific guiding principles, and those are 2 very different things, as is the vision statement at the bottom. And you just want to think through, what's a mission statement and what truly is a guiding principle versus what is a vision statement.
And what's the plan?
This is what I want to do, this is how I'm going to do it, and this is what I want the outcome to be. And
This is fascinating, because I'm learning a lot from all of you about the importance of these distinctions, because there's a tendency in my head just to say, who cares what category it falls under, as long as it's like up there, like what we want, how we want to do it, what we intend. But I get if you're looking at 20 years down the line, we want to build a framework that other people can get under.
There's a structure that has to be in place. There's a structure that has to be in place.
Generally, when you think about it, you think of goals as your overarching, goals, what you want to achieve. Objectives are the specific policies for how you would achieve it, and then the policies are more like the actual steps that you would take, the specific steps. So that would be like the overall structure. And if you guys love that, you will love working on the local comprehensive plan.
Well, I think I have the concept of what you're trying to do. It's long-range planning technically, which is where Glory comes in. And if it's gonna take 10, 12, 15 years, I'll be pushing daisies by then. But in the meantime, what you're working on to try to provide something better in the community, something viable in all the areas, parking lots or whatever, well, you have to get the community on
Yes.
board. Because if you don't, and I've seen it happen in a smaller scale, things are shot down in one fell swoop.
I'm telling you.
And by that time, you will have maybe 4 or 5 different boards of selectmen that have all gone through the system. And so, you have to get, they are gonna make a decision in the final analysis, or you can circumvent that and put your own articles in, and that's never very successful in my past history. So unless things change radically, you have a yeoman's job ahead of you to try to make all of this work and get it through. So, and I hope you do, because we certainly need something different. We need to be upgraded. We need a lot of new things to make us a community that's viable for everybody. And I admire what you're all planning to do. I'm just saying that it's not as simple. It sounds wonderful. You do this and you'll do this and you'll do that, and that's going to swoop right through. You could spend 10 or 15 years planning all of this and find out that it's not going to work unless you have a lot of other people that you've convinced on the way. And that's my comment for today. I'm not trying to discourage you, I'm just saying it's a big job. Yeah.
It's a key part of the mission to get the community on board. I mean, I think that should come out in the mission
It
statement.
should be in the mission statement,
Yeah.
and also I wanted to say that.
That's the inspirational part.
That you can tell when you look at the draft group structure for every meeting that communications people wrote it. Because what's still missing is outreach. And again, I don't want to be the head of outreach, I'll join somebody else that agrees to be the head of outreach. But I think outreach is absolutely critical in this.
So wait, he has here communicating with each other and the general community. Like I think, but specifically outreach
But
meaning.
I don't want him to think it's limited to the banner. In other words, we have to bring people in to our way of thinking, both the small groups and the big groups. We have to bring in all the locals, the people that have been here for generations. Where are they?
Because outreach doesn't necessarily mean only inclusiveness. We have to be inclusive.
Exactly.
We have to
All right,
come
now
in
we're getting to the point where we, if you read my minutes from the first meeting, there's like 2 paragraphs about how important outreach is.
Yeah.
So I think that we know that outreach is going to be a very, very key thing, and we'll put it specifically in one of these categories.
And
We'll write outreach.
is in the at least one of the
But
clubs.
now we're beating the dead horse because we have talked about that.
All right.
What should we do? I'm not being
Can we
specific.
just
I'm
go back
saying
over, Brian, what
agree.
you were saying about
Yeah, we agree.
what, can you repeat what you said?
Homework.
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 Yeah.
So instead of presenting our sentences next week, because that could take all night,
Right.
given this group, we email Gloria what
Yeah.
we feel, and then Gloria or some other people can
Yeah.
go through them and see what the
Yeah.
overarching generalization of all our statements are, because then that can help us direct our mission
And
statement.
the goal of next week is to leave the meeting, or at least be on the path from after leaving that meeting with a mission statement and guiding principles.
And subgroups.
Yes.
Well, that was-
Because we're
that's
already,
where I-
we'll be into our 3rd meeting at this point, so we
Yeah.
need to actually establish
Start.
subgroups and decide what we're gonna start looking at.
So can we then also on the subgroup be thinking, the other sort of part B of the homework is the subgroups, and do we want, and maybe we just, do this sort of by, I don't know, lack of a better thing, show of hands, but are we gonna do all of these things? Are we gonna group them into this sort of, or is Macmillan Pier gonna go with development of the waterfront as one group? Are we gonna have 6, are we gonna have 4, and how, and what those are? So I guess my next suggestion is to have everybody think about what they would suggest or propose, and sort of throw out some of those ideas, and then make that decision by the end of next week's meeting.
I'm gonna make a suggestion on that right now.
Yeah.
Because if you look at all these categories, I can see taking tactical urbanism and governance
Right.
out as a category, but
Right.
I would not recommend combining these at this point because each one already has enough bullet points for any group to address.
Okay.
If you put too many together, it gets too overwhelming.
Right.
I would rather prioritize them in smaller groups. I think it'll be more effective in the long term. There's also a method to my madness in the some things are italicized and some aren't. The things that are italicized are my own comments and ideas, not directly found in the DART report. If you guys see other things in there that I didn't pick up on, because I did this from the draft report before I even got the finished ones, or if you come up with other ideas that you would like to see italicized that aren't in the DART report but you think would fit under here and might be a good idea, feel free to send those ideas along to me and I'll incorporate them in the next agenda. But I don't think we should necessarily combine things right now and overwhelm each group.
I don't have an objection to that. I mean, I don't disagree with you on that, Maria. I felt like somebody at some point had said.
I know.
We should do 4 groups, and there can be combinations,
Well,
but.
We should probably like see tonight what the generalization
Yeah.
people are gonna break into, because we might actually just go down to 4 groups.
Exactly.
Just.
And there could be groups and subgroups, you know?
But I'm just
Yeah.
saying, like,
And then
not
when you
all
look
this
at
might have
and look at the
interest.
waterfront, all the specific things to follow up on there. So that's like there's a lot of information there
So I
that
see
should be.
economic development dividing into 3 or 4 subgroups. One would be the waterfront, one might be the pier, one might be, I don't know what, the market in the parking lot that needs some mobility.
But I think Brian's point is that people are going to vote with their feet. So if you can be on more than one committee, great. But I assume most people probably only be on one, and we probably don't have enough people here to do more than 4 or 5. Maybe not even that many.
Right.
Maybe we end up with people populating 3 committees.
Right.
And that's
Can
the
we
3
do
we're
a
going
rough
to do.
survey now that I'll put up like
Yeah, I think that's.
That's what I said, yeah.
5 pieces of paper up at the front,
What group of
and then
one?
that have each of these categories that she already has on here.
Yeah.
Right.
And then everyone just, we'll take 5 minutes, everybody just walk up here and then write your name on the thing that you're interested in.
Except for the last 2, right?
Can I,
Right, except for the last 2.
can I make a recommendation as well that we combine the waterfront and McMillan Pier for the
Yeah.
time being?
For the,
I
so
agree.
just
Because
waterfront?
That's it. I
Yeah.
know there's a
It's
lot of
really-
bullet
Well,
points on
I
the
said that
waterfront,
there's
but
some
if we look at
fundamentally
those as 2
different.
different projects, that's gonna be a disaster.
But I don't
I
think
look
we're gonna
at
have
them as
enough
very
people.
different.
All right, and I'm gonna put it on the same sheet with a line in the middle. And one side's gonna say waterfront and one side's gonna say McMillan Pier. So we'll know that the people, you can be interested in one or the other or both, but we'll know that they're related. And that's how we can just for now get a sense
All right, it has to be.
of who's doing what, where, and when, because this isn't written in stone, it's just written in Rob's red pen.
Can I throw something else out? Jennifer mentioned it earlier, and I was talking to Michelle earlier, about the DART report and not being crazy about everything on it. Is it unmanageable for us to have a group discussion reviewing the DART report where we can voice our opinions on it? Maybe that's just too much. I don't know, before we break into groups, can we talk about the big DART report?
Do
as a
an
group?
overall, or, I mean, I envision that as something each subgroup would do. If you pick the category in the DART report, that's the job of the subgroup to say, this isn't feasible,
Okay, that's what
this
I'm
isn't
asking.
But I
realistic.
think that what he's saying that I think is valuable is to know as early as possible what things we're not going to pursue right now. And those are the things that there's not any support for.
But the answer is simpler than that. The DART report is not our Bible that we're going to go
Exactly.
by.
Right.
It's up to this group tonight or next meeting to decide what this group is about.
Exactly.
And this is what we need to be doing. I feel like I'm repeating myself now.
No.
Until we have this mission statement and what we stand for. Our mission is we apply by the DART report and we try to do everything that is
Right.
the DART report. That's not what we are
Right.
about. So
But
we
I'd
need
kind of like to
define
know
what
what
is
everyone
important.
else thinks of the DART report.
I think that might have to be there for the next meeting.
No, not today. No, not today.
That's just a guess.
Right, because I think we need a
So
general.
do you guys want to have that larger discussion, like go down the list of all these recommendations?
I think we should get a generalization tonight of what is
Yes,
gonna be
I agree.
popular.
Okay.
Like,
Oh,
we'll just
that's
go through it and like, Shane Peter, if you're interested, raise your hand. That way
Wait a
we get a
minute.
general.
That's a big, long discussion.
No, discussion.
No, just to see what
Just to
is
see
gonna.
what subgroups.
what
Just
is
have a
gonna
little
be.
piece of paper.
Do you want to do this thing where you write your name on here, or we just get it?
Okay, yeah.
I mean,
That's what Brian's saying, because if nobody signs up for zoning changes, then we already know that that's not going to be
all right,
moving
everybody,
forward.
waterfront and pier is here. Zoning, here. Parking and transit, ooh.
Can't update the parking lot unless you address it.
I know, well, that's the whole thing why I'm putting the, next to the pier part, but community housing and then Shank Painter, let's put Shank Painter next to zoning. Because those are kind of similar.
In your opinion.
In my opinion. All right, so, everybody goes up with a pen. I'll start, I'll put my name on.
Zoning.
Next, zoning.
Is housing up
Don't
there?
let me just wait anymore.
You can do whatever you want. You can be on all of them, none of them, one of them, 20 of them. No,
And you can sign up for more than one.
We're all in.
Don't overcommit yourself, though.
That's a good point.
No. I don't think anyone here believes in the quick fix. We would have left Friday down a long time ago. We believe in the quick.
I was wondering about writing my own little manifesto and sort of sharing, maybe that was a better way to, well, I mean, like my own review of the DART report and doing it that way.
I think that if the group decides that that's a good discussion to have overall at the next meeting, I think it would be helpful to have.
Because I'd be curious what everyone else, not just in subcommittees, I kind of want to know.
Hey Rick, don't forget that you can also comment, just because you're running the camera, you can also, because you're a smarty pants.
I know my voice is really loud when I'm standing next to the camera, so I don't want to say anything and come across as overbearing. So I'm going to be quiet this time. Next time I'll sit in the chair.
Okay. Yeah, well, I haven't, I saw what I wrote and I said, I don't know about it. And we have a big agenda. We're going to do the walkthrough of town hall and everything. So
That's pretty serious.
So the other thing is, if it snows,
We're supposed to get like an agenda.
no, there's Sunday. Very safe. No, we're looking at a big storm.
Get out.
Yeah, a 4-day storm starting Saturday and not ending till Tuesday. Saturday night is supposed to start.
My daughter,
So anyways, let's just touch base and
Is that one night someone just go up there?
Well, Marty's been here since 3 in the afternoon at meetings. This woman has made three times, and you're coming again, February 18th. Is there any data? Is there any? What's your answer on our agenda? Nobody tells me. They don't tell you, it's posted. It's like when I said, I'll send it to you. But it's nuts. February 18th, something like that. We're going to have a question, 19th and 20th. Go to it. It's that time of year. No. I'm going to create your jacket. It's going to be me. Yeah, but then we met again. And then we're going to meet again. No, there's no change. You got it right there. I mean, you're right there. Nobody can park until what? The good thing too about writing is it gives everybody a little bit more.
I'll send reminders for information. I already have in mind, thanks to Glenn, so we can get another cut.
I can't remember doing 2 meetings in a row. I don't know how you do it, 2 meetings in a row.
So, okay, so we know next week we're going to talk about the mission. We're going to leave the meeting with the mission statement, or at least a good portion of it done. We're going to do that with the guiding principles as well, incorporating the draft we have, plus all of our new ideas, plus what was done already in the reports for us. And then we're going to talk more specifically about the working groups.
Well, I think that from generally hearing what people had to say, I think people are on board with Stephen's idea of kind of doing a general overview of all of the recommendations as a whole group, as opposed to waiting for working groups to kind of vet each idea and think about whether it's feasible or not. So I think that's a reasonable way to start, and then we can start thinking about breaking up into groups.
I know it'll be long and tedious, but I think it's necessary.
We can move it along. I mean,
It doesn't have to be long and tedious.
We don't all have to say everything on everything.
And we don't have to say the same thing 3 times.
Right.
So we get a sense of the numbers that you just looked at?
You felt like you had to, but I mean.
Just like not names and stuff, but just numbers.
So it sounds like next week's meeting is going to be long. Is there a way to start it a little
Yeah,
earlier?
we were supposed to start 5:30. That's why we have the meetings on the second Wednesday, so it's not after a historical district commission meeting, and because this was rescheduled, that's why.
So you had to sneak it.
So we'll meet at 5:30.
Okay.
I don't want to meet at 5 because my day ends at 5,
Yes,
and I would like to be able to have like a little bit of. Okay,
It's
so
not like you can leave the building, Gloria.
I haven't left this room since So, okay, community housing, we have 6 people who are interested.
Yay.
Zoning, we have 3, which I consider a triumph.
That's a lot.
Exactly.
Suckers.
But I didn't write my name on it, so. Shane Painter, we have 7. I'm very pleased about that. That's going to involve some
That's surprising too.
town meeting concepts and zoning. Parking transit, only 4.
That's all we need.
Yeah. And now the pier has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6, 7. And then waterfront has, and there's some overlap, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
However you want the water.
You know what? It's a good split though, because there's a lot to do for waterfront.
Right.
So
A lot to do.
I'm happy with the breakdown.
That's really cool.
Yeah. All right, so give me your ideas by Monday, maybe sooner if possible. It'll be easier for me. I'll send out reminders because that can be a nag. And we will meet next Wednesday at 5:30, same place.
Hold on to those, so those people that signed up for zoning can't back out.
I have a quick announcement before everybody leaves. Those of you who are passionate about housing, CPC is meeting.
We don't know now.
We don't know yet, but
Well, there is a public hearing on February 23rd, Monday, 1 o'clock.
And the reason why I bring this up is because the Winslow Street property is one of the topics that's being discussed right now. There is a request for $1 million in funds to acquire the Winslow Farms property to connect it to the VFW for affordable housing. So it would really help to have some public comments come in and discuss.
When is it again?
Monday, February 23rd, 1 o'clock. Where? At the VMCC. The old elementary school.
Monday, February 23rd at
1 o'clock.
There's a couple of other things on the docket right now for affordable housing. Winslow Farms, the firehouse number 2 across from local. We also have the study assessment for the, I forget what that's, the elementary school. And there's
Former community center.
former community center.
Why don't you email people that piece that you put together that I've seen 4 times?
Okay.
It has the priorities, they're great, you guys are great for it.
But we need people to show up and either in support or in opposition so that you help us decide.
And get things out.
Yes.
Definitely send it around an email as a reminder to everyone. And if you send something to me, I'll shout it around everywhere.
If it's an ad, I don't like it.